Western Europe is ripe for a civil war.
Police were outside my house last week.
And you were a little bit worried.
I was worried. I was thinking, here we go, Silver Fox.
Yeah.
They could be coming for me.
Yeah. Referring to Keir Starmer, and be arrested at night because they think you're trying to get Keir Starmer killed.
I don't think anyone's going to be banging pans for the health service
Ever again.
And not surprisingly.
That should be, yeah, thank you for coming, but we're not looking at that. Fighting Ulysses is the first step on the step to civil war.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Mayor and I epic. I'm going to start again.
Start again.
Ladies and gentlemen. No, I know what I was going to say, but I want to tell us. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're founders, welcome to the resistance. I'm looking in the wrong place again. I need to be looking in there. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Mayor and I with I, Lindsay Khan, and Nick Buckley, MBE, mayoral candidate, former parliamentary candidate, former charity founder.
Yeah. Former member of Blockbusters.
Former member of Blockbusters. Multiple. And this is our weekly chat, the Mayor and I, where we talk about things happening in the news that we find of interest. And I'll ask Nick questions and he'll answer them. We both get slightly irritated. Episode 81, Nick.
Yeah.
The Mayor and I. If you like what you watch, please subscribe. There's that subscribing, thumbs up.
Comment, share.
Buy Nick's best-selling book, England, My England. Nick Buckley, welcome.
Thank you. And can we make an announcement that even you don't know about?
Are you pregnant?
No. We talked about weight before, didn't we? But yeah, thank you for that. YouTube have started something new called membership. And depending how many followers you've got and stuff like that, you can apply for membership, which they asked me to do, so we've done.
Oh, really?
We now can have memberships, which starts off at £2.99 a month.
Right.
And we will offer them extra stuff, such as if they ask questions in the comments, we'll ask them live on air while we're doing this.
Yes.
They will get priority with their comments. Their comments will always stay at the top of any video. And there's lots of things they will get. Plus, I'll do some bespoke videos just for members.
Yeah.
So that started today. There'll be a button on our home screen that says "Be a Member," and it starts at $2.99. And let's see how that goes.
I knew nothing about this, Fuse. It's a shock to me and a surprise. Perhaps we could do like an episode of the Mayor and I naked for the members only.
We're trying to increase membership here. Last thing really, not CND, Greenpeace smashing through the door, trying to push us back in the ocean.
So that's really interesting. All right. So you've reached a threshold now where you can now be a member. Is that what you said? Oh, it's a new YouTube thing, is it?
Well, it's a new thing, but you have to have so many followers anyway. So now maybe, well, I can earn a little bit extra money out of YouTube, and we can make more videos and do stuff. So we'll see where it goes.
Very good. Well done. And how many members have you got? How many subscribers?
Subscribers were something like 70 away from hitting 33,000.
Wow. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Very well.
I looked at the stats the other day. We're going up roughly 2,000 a month.
That's good.
We're doing 500 a week.
That's good. So let's get into it. Obviously the shock news of the week, and I know you'll be devastated. Tottenham Hotspur versus Man United. We lost 1-0.
Well, someone screenshotted the Premier League table, but only screenshotted it 1 to 13.
What?
And I went,
"Where's United?"
So I had to Google then to find the full one. Then down to 15. It's like, I can't believe Manchester United's at 15.
I think we are in serious trouble.
Relegation trouble.
I don't think we're going to be relegated,
right,
but we are. I don't think I've seen us this bad in this last decade, which has been shocking.
Yeah.
It's just, we're in an absolute mess. So,
is it a reflection of how the country is? That
I like to think so.
Man U had its highs.
Yeah.
We had a great, great leadership at the time under Ferguson.
Yeah.
Did everything, conquered the world, conquered Europe.
Yeah.
And now this is the slow decline for Man U, as it is for the UK. We've had our heights, and now the complacency set in many decades ago, and we're just slowly dying.
That's interesting, isn't it? Well, United is a manifestation of the UK and where it's going. It could be. It would tie in, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
A few corrections from last week. LinkedIn is apparently owned by Microsoft, not Google.
I've heard that. Thank you
one
for
of
the
our
correction.
readers corrected us. Another commentator said, I don't know why, but I dislike your channel. No substance. Extremely weak commentators.
All I'm going to say about that is I'm sick and tired of your wife commenting. Tell her to stop.
If I could just give thanks to @Rosemary, who commented on that comment and said, bye-bye, you won't be missed.
I mean, let's be honest. There's a good...
To the guy who said...
There's a good chance this might be a crap podcast. But the best thing about YouTube is you're not forced to watch it.
Yeah.
Stop watching it, turn off, and go find something better that you think's better. This isn't going to be for everyone. I know it's not, because everyone's got different personalities, different needs, different wants. Tune out, go find something else. You have to let us know we're crap.
Yeah.
You pretty know we're crap.
Yeah. I think the reason I worry about that is because I know how desperate you are to be liked, Nick. You know, you're desperate for crave attention. You want everybody to like you. So that might have hurt.
Not big fat girly men like Kim. not girly men, no.
And the final shock horror, I called you, didn't I? I texted you. Police were outside my house last week.
And you were a little bit worried.
I was worried. I was thinking, here we go, Silver Fox.
Yeah.
They could be coming for me.
Yeah.
I think it was just a neighbour dispute or something.
Yeah.
It wasn't actually me. But they were right outside my house for a while.
Because you do say some more controversial stuff to me. Because if I say controversial stuff, I didn't explain what I mean.
I just say it for the hell of it. Yeah.
Not always, but yes. I mean, when you text me, even it was like 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah, and that's what I thought, because it was at 11 o'clock on a Friday night.
Yeah.
I thought, that's when they come for you, don't they, on a Friday night, just when you're relaxing with a beer. Yeah. Anyway, it was okay. But I did warn you just in case it were turning up at your place as well. It could have been a double raid.
Well, I was already at the back. I was over a neighbour's fence. They went crazy, set the dog off. And I was trying to get to the woods.
You left your wife behind in the house.
Oh, yeah. I told her to tell him I'm in the bath. Just give me that extra couple of seconds. I need step ladders to get over my neighbour's fence. I'm not fat and heavy.
I want to start. We talked briefly before this episode about free speech, because you're interviewing a lady. You'll tell us about it in a minute, I'm sure. Yeah. But the really exciting thing I saw this week, I thought it was really, really interesting, was J.D. Vance's speech to the Munich Security Conference, which basically was an assembly of all the great and good of Europe, basically. And basically, you can maybe give us more information here, but as far as I saw, he basically told Europe, you are destroying free speech, and particularly he said the UK is in a really bad place, and he mentioned a man called Adam Smith Connor, who was praying silently outside a Bournemouth abortion clinic, and he was arrested. He's an army veteran, convicted for 2 years, convicted for 2 years, we're given a conditional discharge and having to pay £9,000. But what are the ramifications of J.D. Vance, who's the second most powerful man in the world, coming to Europe and saying this?
They didn't like it. They didn't like the truth. Now, you may want an authoritarian state, an authoritarian Europe. That might be what you want. There's an argument for that. If you want peace, if you want to control people and things like that, there's definitely a market for people like that. I'm not in that market. But he told the truth to the people, and the people who heard it didn't like it and then forced themselves not to believe it. There's no way you can live in Europe or the UK and think we have free speech. There's no way you can think that at all. I'm going to be interviewing a lady on Thursday, so I'll probably be out Thursday, Friday evening this week, called Isabel, and I think her surname's Spruce. Forgot her surname now. But she's also been arrested several times now for praying silently in her head in the UK near abortion centres. So we'll find out exactly what went on there. But we have example after example after example where we don't have free speech. You can be an army veteran who says online if you don't like mass immigration, you need to demonstrate on the streets, but do it peacefully and you get arrested. Or you can be a middle-aged YouTuber who talks about immigration and makes a half joke, half well-used phrase such as string him up, referring to Keir Starmer, and be arrested and even at night because they think you're trying to get Keir Starmer killed. And you think we have free speech. And these people in Europe, you know, the elite, they know we don't have free speech. They don't want us to have free speech, but they have to push back on J.D. Vance. And some of the stuff that's been online this week, pushing back against him, is just mental.
Well, I think the German defence minister, so J.D. Vance effectively said Europe does not accept free speech.
It doesn't.
And the German defence minister said his speech was not acceptable, which kind of proves the point, really. So, but I think what it highlighted for me was a massive divide now between America, where America is heading, the concept of free speech, which is enshrined in the First Amendment in America, and what is happening in this country. And the horrific idea that you can be arrested for praying silently. And we've kind of just accepted it, haven't we? But actually, if you reflect on the lady you're going to interview, reflect on this guy, Adam Smith Connor, it's shocking. And I think they've even now said that if somebody's praying silently in their own house in the radius of these abortion clinics, they can be arrested as well. So you can't actually now pray in your own house if you're in a radius for these aborted kids.
These exclusion zones around abortion clinics never should have started in the first place. We have the right to protest, or we don't. Now, if you don't want the right to protest, again, there's an argument to be made for that, but that means no Just Stop Oil protests, no Free Palestine protests, no Black Lives Matter protests. You can't pick and choose which protests you can allow or don't allow. We have protest or we don't allow protest. Now, I'm on the side of we allow protest. It's the only way sometimes to hold the government's feet to the fire, by showing them that people aren't happy. Whether that makes a difference or not, on the grand scheme of things, it never makes a difference. We saw that with the Iraq war with Tony Blair. Too many people on the streets of London, we still went to war. But that's not the point. The point is it sends a message to the government that we're not happy about this. But we have these exclusion zones around abortion centres, and there's an argument to be made that a woman going for an abortion, which is legal in this country, that I disagree with, but it's actually legal. I don't want to persecute someone for doing something that's legal in this country. If I'm not offended by it, I need to change the law, not persecute the individual. I need to change the law. Now, if we've got people accessing abortion clinics and outside are mass demonstrations, and it's really intimidating, and people are taking your photos and putting them online, you know, child murderer. Well, I wouldn't want that. But that's not what these people are doing. These people are usually stood a few streets away or maybe in sight of the centre on their own, holding no signs, stood there silently praying for the soul of the baby that's about to be murdered. And we don't even want that anymore now. And that's because we're addicted to abortion in this country. We're addicted to it.
Well, but it also basically says that the correct decision is to have the right to abortion as well. The fact it's persecuting people who are opposed to it is kind of, so the government's come down basically and said abortion's right, and actually we're going to prosecute anybody who opposes it. That's what it's basically saying.
Yeah.
But the essence of this is about, I mean, J.D. Vance's speech was much broader than this, wasn't it? It was about everything that's happening in free speech and basically urging the European leaders to stop the direction they're heading in terms of free speech. 300 people have been charged so far under the Online Safety Act. I don't know if you're aware of that. So these things are not limited to one or two people. We're now talking large numbers of people. A lot of those people were charged during the Southport riots, basically. So we have this very kind of draconian government who are prosecuting, jailing people for tweets, for silent prayer, for anything that opposes the ideology of the government. And Labour are now wanting to spy on Apple users' data as well. I don't know if you've heard that. That's the latest thing. So they're now trying to extend this kind of draconian monitoring of the people in this country even more by spying on people who have Apple phones. I'm guessing they have access to Android phones already. I don't know.
Well, Apple will not allow them.
Yeah, quite right.
Plus, it's an American company.
Yeah.
Because if Apple allowed them, it's the end of Apple.
Yeah.
It's the end of that brand, because nobody then would trust them that they've got a phone that can't be accessed by different governments around the world. So nobody would buy it. So the end of Apple. The fact that Apple's an American company makes it a lot easier for them. What was the bit before that? The Online Safety.
Online Safety Act, yeah.
Well, if you have a multicultural, a multi-faith, a multi-ethnic, a multi-divisional on any other type of thing, identity politics, if you have a society like that, the only way to stop mass violence is for the biggest gang, which is the government, to have an iron fist, to clamp down on people and say, we're not having that, stop it, and we're going to persecute you. So when the Hindus attack the Muslims, they'll come down hard on the Hindus. When the Jews attack the gays, they'll come down, because it's the only way to keep the potential civil war breaking out in the country. And we talked about it last time. That's what General Tito did in Yugoslavia. And that's what Saddam Hussein did with the Sunnis, the Shiites, the Kurds, the Marsh Arabs. All these sections of the country all hate each other. But to rule it, they've got to fear you more than they fear their neighbours. And that's what's happening in this country now. The government fears all these small little groups, especially the white British, white English, and they're having to come down hard on them to keep them all in line. Otherwise, there will be more. I mean, violence is coming. I've come to the conclusion now, violence is definitely coming. But they think they can stop it. They can't stop it. The most they can do is mitigate it by changing policy, but trying to keep a lid on it increases the pressure, and when it explodes, it'll be even worse.
And I want to talk about that, because last episode we talked about civil war, and I said I'm seeing people in my WhatsApp group now talking openly about it. I sent you a video, and I think you're going to be interviewing a guy called David Betts.
Yeah.
And he's now saying that there's going to be civil war in this country within 5 years. Now, unfortunately, I was listening to it last night in bed, and I fell asleep.
No.
Before I actually...
That's a good advertisement.
And David, if you're watching, apologies, but it wasn't because of you. I was just absolutely shattered. I put my earphones in. Next thing I knew, I was fast asleep. So I didn't actually hear it, but I think you have watched it, haven't you? I was going to try to listen on the way over here. So what... I'm intrigued to know, what is he saying? And why does he think there is... I mean, you and I have talked about this. And you always say violence is not... And I always say, I think violence is acceptable in certain situations. I think, this... Because, again, it's a cliche, isn't it? Violence... We will not tolerate violence. Bollocks, In certain situations, what this government is doing to us, I think violence is an answer. That's my personal view. I don't know if you're coming round to that, but I'd be interested to know what David Betts is. Now, if I hadn't fallen asleep, I would know. So,
Well, violence is the last resort. That's my stance. Violence is the last resort. If violence is the first resort, then we're always having violence. Because somebody always wants something.
Of course.
But at the end of the day, violence always has to be on the table. So, David Betts, professor at a university in London,
Of like war studies or something.
He does war studies. He knows what he's talking about. He's done a lot of work on.
He's advised the government, I think, as well.
He analysed lots of different civil wars over centuries to see what started them. Could they be predicted? And he's looking at what he's discovered there, and he's looking at today, and he's saying we're ripe. The Western Europe is ripe for a civil war, and he says you don't have civil wars when one group is so big that they outnumber everybody else. He says because nobody will rise up then, because it's like 95% to 5%. No one does that. And you also don't get a civil war when the country or the area is split into so many groups that, there's like 13, 50, 60 groups in the area, because no group can be dominant, so they're always fighting against it. So you don't get it then. He says you get it when where we are now, where there's been a decline in living standards, because that makes everyone go back to tribalism. As in, I want to fight for my tribe. We need more resources. When there's perceived other people, other foreigners seem to be taking stuff from your group. But most of all, when the split of the nation is in groups that are fairly equally split. And the main essence of his argument is it's the countryside against the cities. That's where the civil wars go to start. And it's because the cities, as we know, are turning into violent hellholes. That's where most of the immigrants go. But the countryside is still, mainly Anglo-Saxon, white, British.
What does he mean countryside? Does he mean the suburbs as well?
I'm not sure where that definition is. But he used countryside and cities. Well, I would imagine the suburbs come with the cities, because most people who live in the suburbs, a lot of them are white idiots, liberal idiots who agree with a lot of this stuff.
I'm not sure, because we're going to talk about the Cresta Court again later, aren't we? Because I can't remember what it's called. Wesley, somebody's a guy. There was a protest at the Cresta Court, wasn't it?
I spoke to him the other day. He's going on my channel in the week.
Yeah, he's a great guy. He goes and there were people, British people, local residents, tending to be white, middle-aged people, there protesting about the immigrants in the Cresta Court, and there was a big crowd of obviously they'd been shipped in protesters, refugees, welcome, all that shit, Home Not 8, whatever. None of them were from the area, and they all disappeared at 3 o'clock. They were bussed in, basically. But now what I'm saying is you're actually seeing the white middle class, the white people who are starting to realise this is actually going out and protesting now and saying this is not acceptable. Who are these guys in our and it's a fair comment, isn't it? If you're a 50-year-old white guy in Altrincham and suddenly there's a hotel full of young fighting age brown guys, you've got every right to say, who the hell are these guys and what are they doing in my town? I've lived here 50 years. Now, suddenly we've got blokes here. We don't know where they're from, who they are.
That we're paying for. In one of our big hotels that I used to go have a pint in. What the hell's going on? Of course you're entitled to say that, aren't you? And I think more and more people are saying that now. They have across the country, but the only reason why Altringham's a bit different is because they put a migrant hotel there. Why did they put a migrant hotel there? Because the 3 local councillors are Green councillors who are for open borders. The MP is a Labour MP, and the council's a Labour MP. So the people living there, a lot of them were voting for this, either purposely or had no idea what the policies were. So they've got what they voted for. But things are changing all over the country, and that's what...
And where are you now? So you said violence. You didn't used to think there was violence. So I think if we go back a year now, because we've been doing this year now, haven't we? If we go back a year, when we first started talking, you said there won't be violence, there won't be revolution, there won't be whatever. But so your views have similar to the police.
Yeah,
your views on the police, your views have changed.
Not in civil war. I still can't foresee a civil war. It also means what do you mean by civil war?
Well, I mean unrest. I mean violent unrest is what I'm talking about, which we started to see at Southport, didn't we?
Yeah. Oh, I definitely can see violent unrest. I can definitely see some disenfranchised young white males either blowing stuff up, getting guns, killing people, riots on the streets. I can see that. But when people talk about civil war, that conjures up, the English Civil War, the American Civil War, the French Revolution. And that's always a possibility. But I think we're going to avoid that over the next 5-10 years. I think there'll be massive changes. I think we'll avoid it. But things are changing so quickly that it's hard to predict the future on, because things are changing month by month.
Well, I think what I've noticed in the last 2 or 3 weeks that the Labour Party has started to say things to try and appease people, and they're no longer taking that totally. We're going to push on regardless and do this crazy shit we're doing. They're actually starting to say things that make a bit of sense. Whether they'll actually deliver them, I don't know. But we'll talk about it later. We'll talk about it later.
I'm sure they'll try, because don't forget, what does every government in power want?
To get in power.
To get in power again.
Yeah.
So now they're in power, it's like, this is, look at the polls, look at this, look at that. We need to start. What we said to be elected isn't what we need to say now to be re-elected. So they'll start changing some of their policies and some of their things. But this government's done. This government has destroyed its reputation. The little bit of following it had is destroyed it in 6 of the months. This government is done. I don't think, even if they ended the boats tomorrow, this government's done.
I want to talk about, we're talking about the Civil War, and I think part of the reason that something is going to happen is that we see now every single day this government, the Uniparty, being totally not interested in its citizens, not caring about its citizens, diverting money away from its citizens to other people. And the examples carry on and on and on. And I just want to talk through a few things. One of our listeners mentioned he had because I think we were talking about the welfare state and things like that. He mentioned he had a customer. I don't know whether he had a shop or not. This guy, the guy who our listeners called Simon Weekly. He mentioned a guy called Dempster. Dempster was a 47-year-old crack addict who was his customer. He'd never had a job in his entire life. He used to come into the guy's shop, basically. He gets £500 a week and a flat paid for. So this is a guy who's never had a job, has a flat paid for, gets £500 a week, which is not a bad amount to get, is it, for a crack addict?
Yeah.
And we've been paying for him for
30
years.
I've worked with people like this for decades. And I know I've worked with people like this, whole families like this.
Never worked.
Is on more money on benefits than they ever could earn by themselves, going legit.
Yeah.
Everything given free for them. And we do it out of compassion, we do it out of tolerance, we do it out of making ourselves feel better as a government, as a taxpayer. And we're to blame for people like Dempster. The government should have been giving him a hand up to be a better version of himself. But the government look at him and go, you're always going to be a waste of space. You're always going to be a problem to us. Let's get you on some sort of sick benefit now. You then don't show up in our unemployment figures and we can forget about you forever. And the jobs you should have done, we'll just get a migrant in the country to do it. And we'll just dump him on the scrap heap of life because it was easier for the government to do. Now, some of our citizens in this country will take a lot of work to fix. Some of them will never be fixed, but we never should give up on trying to fix them. And we should never dump our fellow citizens on the scrap heap to be replaced by a foreigner we just let in the country because we need an extra worker. And we do this out of convenience for the politicians. It's just pure convenience. It's not cheaper. It's not better for the country. It's not better for anyone. It's just convenient for them. And we need a better class of politician.
The news just gets worse. The health service, which we know, I don't think anyone's going to be banging pans for the health service
ever again,
and not surprisingly, it's 18% less productive than before COVID.
And it was crap before COVID. Yeah, and now it's 18% more crap.
There was a shocking stat, an article that came out, and I think I sent it to you. That hopefully you read it. Apparently, councils are now paying for taxis for kids to go to school. Have you heard about this?
Been doing this for 30, 40 years.
So somebody did a Freedom of Information on how much you're spending on, and this is to do with an old legislation that if you live beyond more than a certain distance from a school, you're entitled to a taxi or something.
It's not to do with that. You get free bus pass for that.
Yeah.
It's if you're a problem child. It's if you have, if you are a looked after child, if you're this, if you're that, if you're a disabled child. So this isn't any child who lives far away. This is special cases, and there's millions of them.
So one school Camden have got one pupil. They've spent up to £969. Now get this, a day for this pupil on taxi fares.
Where they going? Paris?
No, all I'm assuming is the kid lives 10 miles away. The taxi arrives an hour before the kid's meter's going. Drive to the school. Maybe they wait for them all freaking day. I don't know. £969. Some of the taxi fares for these pupils add up to more than fees for a private school to send that kid to a private school. 40, 50 grand a year. And you know what the magic number is that they're spending on this per year on these taxis? 1.6 billion a year.
So the winter fuel allowance again.
The winter fuel allowance, magic number. Yeah. So we're paying, I mean, are people aware of this? Massive spending.
Yeah, it's a lot sleazier than you imagine. So let me just quickly jump back to the NHS. I read something the other day that at the moment, 1 in every 10 NHS patients at the moment are foreigners.
Well, yeah.
10% of all NHS patients are foreigners.
Wow.
Let's talk about this. So,
and they're not paying anything,
No.
which they should be doing.
Yeah. For foreigners. Taxis to schools. So again, this is one of those projects that started with the best intentions. Your child's disabled or has mental health issues, can't go on a bus to school. It's going to ruin their education. The council have got a duty of care for your education. We're going to pay for a taxi to take you to school. And there's a plethora of reasons why you can get a taxi. You know, you've just been made homeless. The council have now moved you 20 miles away. You can't get to school now. We'll pay a taxi because we have a responsibility for you. It's way out of hand. But the sleazy bit's this. Who are the vast majority of taxi drivers and taxi driver firm owners?
I hate to say this because I'll be accused of being racist by somebody, but it tends to be, I would suggest, Asians and Muslims.
Asian men. So why have I raised this?
I don't know.
I raised this because the amount of corruption in this is off the scale. So you have a local taxi firm and your uncle's cousin's brother works at a town hall and he's in charge of giving out these aren't just phone up attack, these are contracts.
Yeah.
To the taxi firms. We want that 2 million contracts off the council this year. There was a case of one of the senior politicians at a council sharing an office with the person who owned the local taxi firm who was getting the multi-million-pound contracts. So if you look, if we had Elon Musk and Dodge coming and looking at this, he would find fraud everywhere. This is a way, to be honest, this is pure fraud. We've got corrupt people running corrupt taxi firms who are selling corrupt contracts to corrupt councils who are getting backhanders for these multi-million-pound contracts for taxis.
Wow. So you've known about this before then?
Decades. Everyone, if you work for a council, if you work in these fields, this isn't a secret. This is not we all know this to be true.
And this is why I think people are getting to the end of the tether, isn't it? Because it's like, this is just everywhere around us now, isn't it? This corruption. And we're seeing in America the Dodge thing. We're seeing the impacts that the Musk is having, and also the level of crazy spending out there. But it's happening here even worse, I think. All our money is being pissed away.
Let me give you the 2 examples I've said to you before, but if you don't remember, because it's been a year now. When I worked at the council, we spent £15,000 in East Manchester on a tightrope walking course. It was over like 6 weeks. Tight ropes, like in a circus, but only 6 inches off the floor. And it was for unemployed people to give them something fun to do to get him off the settee, out of the house. And they're hoping at the end of the course they might go get a job. Not tightrope walking, but they might have got used to getting out of the house. It cost 15 grand. And I remember at the end of the course, I had nothing to do with the course, by the way, but it was in my shared office. The big boss of our department came in made the woman who ran it stand up, started clapping and told everybody the course was a huge success. Out of 15 people who signed up for it, she got 6 to complete the course. £15,000.
A grand a person. Yeah.
Did any of them get a job? We don't know. We never followed up. We didn't care. So, and that's just what I saw in my office.
Yeah.
And I've got story after story.
That is kind of, just stupidity and whatever. 15 grand, and I know 15 grand is that. But 1.6 billion in taxes. There's some serious shit happening, isn't there? Where there's some serious money of ours being spent on that, and corrupt ways. And how the hell do we get to the bottom of it?
We need a department like Dodge to go in and look at all. I mean, the biggest corruption in any council will be planning permission. There's a group of people at the moment, who I won't name, who are looking into Manchester Council and their issuing of contracts. They're building tower blocks in the city centre. Some of it's already been raised by the Ministry of the News, been in different papers. It's fully corrupt. Not just backhanders, but councils telling people, well, these towers are being built, but we're not going to let you apply for the contract because we've already know who we're giving it to. And these are multi-million pounds, no, £100 million deals. 1 or 2 million in the side is petty cash to them. A lot of councils are fully corrupt.
We know that a lot of the councils are now working from home as well. We talked about this, didn't we?
Yeah.
Jamie Dimon, who's the boss of JP Morgan, is in the news this week because he railed against working from home.
Like you.
Like me, yeah. I've got to be careful what I say here because I was getting in trouble. I mean, basically, he said the efficiency, the decision-making is slow, the people aren't interacting. He can't accept people working from home on a Friday. And he said the business is being impacted on things. And interestingly, I went into Mercedes Stockport to drop my car off. You saw I had a different car today because I've got a courtesy car. While I was there, I was kind of watching the girls coming in, starting the day, because I was there fairly early. And they were coming in behind the counter where they serve coffee, and they were having a laugh, joking, and making conversation. And I thought, you don't get that when you were...
Social interaction.
Yeah.
We're social creatures. We need to be around other people for our physical health and mental health.
Yeah.
And when we're not, it seems good. We'd have to get the boss. We save ourselves some money on that. I can do a better washing. There's some short-term benefits of working from home, but the long-term disadvantages is poor mental health, a lack of social skills, a lack of communication, a lack of motivation. They're the medium to long-term negative impacts on it.
Yeah, because the girls had gone to they looked nice. They got dressed up. Came in. They were full of beans. They were having a laugh and a joke. And I thought, look, what a great advert for not working from home. Just seeing those girls just enjoying the start of their day, having a laugh and a chatter. Or whatever. It was very interesting. Rory Stewart, your favourite, wasn't it? So it was in the news this week that his wife runs a charity called Turquoise Mountain.
Yeah.
And it was getting $1 million a year or something from USAID and Musk stopped it basically. And Rory Stewart was on his little crappy program whining about it basically. And the Turquoise Mountain, which is something to do with Afghan women, basically makes them hand-knitted rugs and all that shit. But the reality is, of course, these organisations, what the $1 million actually goes to be spent on is nice salaries for the people who are running the charity, first-class, business-class flights all over the world, fantastic receptions, champagne receptions in London, places or whatever. This is where this money is going, isn't it? It's not going for Afghan women in flipping the mountains of wherever it is.
What are we doing messing with Afghan women? Now, I don't know if this is true, but I read this about his wife's charity. There was a clip online a couple of years ago where the West was still running Afghanistan at the time, and they were looking at, there was a group of Afghan women, they were educating about gender and bollocks and this, and they brought in a male urinal.
I've heard about this.
And said to them, do you know what that is? These women are trying to guess what it was. He had no idea what it was. And so I had to explain, it's a urinal. It's for men to stand up and pee. And the reason why we brought this in is because this is now in the Louvre in Paris, because it's a work of art. And and you can see all these Afghan women going, in Afghan going, what the fucking hell is this bollocks? I might be oppressed, but I'm not fucking mental. And
that was turquoise, man.
And from what I read,
it is, yeah.
That's what that was one of the programs they were running as well while we were running Afghanistan. All these things need to get out of other people's countries.
Yeah.
And the reason why we need to get out of those countries is because we don't understand those countries. And the best way to understand why we don't understand it, I've told you this before. There was a documentary on TV. There was a British army captain talking about his tour in Afghanistan. And every couple of months he went through this village in Helmand province. And he built him a well. And he went back a month later in his troop. And the well had been broken. So he fixed it. Went back again. Broke again. Went back again. Broke again. And he thought, Taliban are coming and breaking the well because we built it.
Yeah.
And as he was walking around the village, some woman went up to him. He had an interpreter. She started screaming at him in whatever language they speak. And his interpreter said, she's saying to you, stop fixing the well. Because every time you fix the well, we don't have to walk a mile to the river to collect water every day. That's the only time we get out of the house. Only time we can speak to our friends and we socialise. But when you fix the well, we go out for 30 seconds, get water, we're back in the house. Stop fixing the well. And that's what he said to the camera. And I realised then, we don't understand these people.
Yeah.
And we're messing with their lives because we think we're doing good.
Yeah.
We just need to leave these people alone to sort their own stuff out.
Yeah. But I think these organisations are not doing much for the Afghan women. Like I say, the main thing they're doing with all this money they're getting is they're just suppling at the teat, aren't they, for themselves? Having a great life.
It makes them feel better.
Yeah, it makes them feel better, but they're having a great life as well. They're flying business, staying in nice hotels in Afghanistan, in Kabul or wherever it is. All that sort of stuff. That's what they're doing with our money. In this case, America's money. But loads of our money goes into these organisations as well. So there's a whole other raft of people taking our money and pissing it away on enjoying themselves and having a great life.
Yeah. Thinking if we can get Afghan women making rugs and pissing in urinals, then they'll have a better life.
Did they actually want them to piss in the urinal?
No.
Oh.
But they were telling, some of those Afghan women may have been trans women. Who knows?
So apparently, I don't know what this guy's name, but there's a new border watchdog has been appointed. Are you aware of this? But he's Finnish, I believe. And he's suggested, so this is our new border watchdog. He's Finnish, but he's suggested he may work from home some of the time in Finland.
Yeah, I'm not sure he's Finnish, but he lives in Finland.
Oh, right, okay.
He said he can be in the office anytime they need him. But he wants to be also working from home. But he can be in the office whenever he's needed.
Right.
As long as you give him 36 hours notice. Absolutely mental. Absolutely mental. Now, he's not been given the job yet, so I believe. He's been shortlisted with some other people. But that surely...
But the fact they're even considering him.
That should be... yeah, thank you for coming, but we're not looking for that.
Oh, God. Council staff in London recently got a full day off because they faced some hostility to the low traffic neighbourhoods. So I think there was a meeting and
they got some abuse.
Some abuse. So it was like, take a day off. Have a day off now. Everybody can have a day off because you got a bit of abuse at the meeting.
I've been in all sort of meetings with the public when everything goes wrong, and it really is upsetting. It's intimidating. It takes its toll. And should be having a day off. I'm 50-50 on that. I don't know. It depends how bad the meetings were. I've been in meetings where I've been threatened. I've been in meetings where I stuck out the back door because I didn't get to my car and I wasn't going through the front door. That's how bad some of these public meetings can be.
There's a few examples of you doing a runner.
Well, yeah, because I don't want to get beat up. As Michael Jackson said, I'm a lover, not a fighter. So should he be getting days off? I don't know. But that David Betts was talking about the Civil War, and he talks about ULEZ. He talks about how the fight against ULEZ is the beginning. The cutting down the infrastructure.
Blade Runners,
And he's saying the next stage after
That's
that.
a really interesting point, that.
He says the next stage after that is attacking the infrastructure, such as electricity generators, knock out the power to the cities, and blowing up bridges or tunnels because you've got bottlenecks going into places. That'll stop the food being delivered. He was saying ULEZ, fighting ULEZ is the first step on the step to civil war.
I was going to talk about under the immigration section, but this might be relevant now. Something kicked off in Birmingham this week, didn't it? There was a young boy got stabbed, and then the hotel was mobbed by...
Hospital.
The hospital?
Yeah.
Was mobbed, but not by a crowd of Pakistanis or Muslims. I think these were angry white guys. Is that right?
No, the picture I saw, they were Muslim.
Oh, were they?
But I don't know if this picture's true or not, because sometimes people can doctor stuff. So this came on my Twitter feed, not from a reputable source that I would 100% believe.
Yeah.
But the pictures were a group of up to 30 Asian-looking men with bats and stakes. I think whatever.
Why were they?
I don't know.
Right.
It's all gone quiet.
I think what's interesting that's come out of that is the reason I say it might be white guys is because there's now talk in Birmingham of vigilante fathers, white guys, to protect their community, starting to protect their communities, which is the opposite of what we have been seeing, which is Asian guys trying to protect their communities. But we're starting to have the talk now, again, talking about the Civil War thing, the idea of white British people starting to create groups to protect themselves.
And the more they do that, the more other people do it.
Yeah.
As in other whites do, because they said, we had an incident in Liverpool city centre the other day where there was a stall on the high street talking about Islam and the Quran, and handed out 3 copies of the Quran, and 30 white people charged it and tore it down and smashed up and all ran away.
Oh, really?
So, it's already happening. More of it will be happening that we know about because the press won't want to report on this because they'll be thinking they'll get copycat.
Yeah.
But across Europe, we saw it in Sweden the other week where that white guy kills a dozen migrants.
Yeah.
The tolerance of the West, I think, has ended down.
It's reached its limits.
I think it's reached its limits. And I think that we're going to go through a phase of violence, and we're going to go through a phase of this, we can call it a civil war, but it's not going to be how most people imagine a civil war with soldiers each side shooting each other. It's going to be more like civil war. It's going to be more like a guerrilla warfare, and they're going to be fighting not only people who they think are the enemy, they're also going to be fighting the state. And I think the civil war might itself be against the state.
Let's see how our state is responding to this. The Labour Party and Starmer, let's see how they're reacting to it. Crazy. So the new health minister, Ashley Dalton, she wants an end to women's toilets, and she backs people identifying as llamas.
Yeah, she's a far left idiot, isn't she? The llama thing was her making a point saying, if someone identifies as a llama, then we need to treat them as a llama and respect them. It's like, no, if someone identifies as a llama, we need to get them professional mental health support because they're not a llama. But this is where this craziness goes to.
Yeah.
If men can identify as women, then why can't you identify as a llama? It's the same scale.
But rather than bringing in a decent, proper health minister, they bring in an imbecile to that role.
But to be fair, Keir Starmer hasn't got a wealth of quality to choose from.
He's like Man United. He's like Amarin. He hasn't got anybody. He's got nobody on the bench, has he?
Exactly. There's no one to choose from. I mean, there's an MP minister today, Labour in the government, who has he's been caught out now lying on his CV.
Yeah. Well, I was going to mention Reeves. Because Reeves again...
Caught again.
Apparently she was involved in an expenses probe at HBOS.
Yeah.
So somebody was fiddling expenses at HBOS. She was involved... I don't know whether she was found guilty at BOS, but she was involved in... So our Chancellor at Exchequer has lied multiple times on her CV.
Yeah.
When I found out she's potentially been involved in some...
Yeah. They told her, jump. That's what I saw. So HBOS said to her, "We're going to be looking into this.
Oh, really?
You better resign."
Jump before.
So
before.
so she resigned and left because she knew what was going. And it's easy for them to have you resign than go through the disciplinary process.
Yeah, of course.
Well, she left knowing I bought perfume, I bought this, I bought that.
Is that what she did?
These are things I've heard. And then she's also caught lying how long. This isn't like months ago. This is like again recently. The BBC found this out about how long she worked at one of the places on her CV. She put 10 years. It turns out it was 6 or 4 years.
Yeah.
And the whole CV is a lie after lie after lie after lie.
And this is our Chancellor.
Chancellor of the Exchequer.
The Chagos Islands debacle continues. The former Prime Minister, who was the prime mover behind the sailor has now been involved in a money laundering scandal.
Yeah. Because most of those people are.
Yeah.
Once you get out of Western Europe, corruption is rife. We think corruption in the West, we look at corruption as something that's wrong and, it shouldn't be done. Once you get out of Western Europe, it's the norm.
Yeah. Bridget Phillipson, who's the Education Secretary.
Another
nutcase. So she quite sensibly invited Catherine Birbalsingh, who I think you know, don't you?
I've been to her school and visited the school. It's amazing.
So Catherine Birbalsingh runs a school. You have to remind me the name of the school.
It's called Michaela.
Michaela Academy.
Yeah.
It's like one of the best performing schools.
The best.
In the country.
Yes.
Better than the private schools, anything like that.
Better than most of the private schools.
Yeah. And it's a state school. So she
state school, non-selective.
Yeah.
The kids who go to her school are sent by the council to her school. It's not like she picks off the cream.
Yeah.
They get sent to her.
Yeah.
She has no choice of who she takes.
So she invited Catherine Birbalsingh, but she didn't like what she was saying to her. And Catherine Birbalsingh said, you appear to have, I've gained the impression of you having an unreasonable and unwanted dislike of academies, blinded by Marxist ideology. Bridget Phillipson, and bear in mind, she's had 13 years to work out what we need to do in education. In opposition, she's had time to study this stuff, hasn't she? But she hasn't. She's got no concrete or strong. Apparently, her policies are just absolutely shocking. Which is why Catherine Birbalsingh is saying, "What the hell are you doing?" Phillipson's met the teaching unions. She's met Birbalsingh probably a couple of times. She's met the teaching unions 33 times in 3 months.
There's only one vote of Catherine Birbalsingh. There's 30, 40, 50, 100,000 votes of teachers who all belong to the teacher union. So that's why they're looking at that. Let me tell you about Michaela School. It's in Wembley in London. So I got invited by Catherine to go have a look at the school because we follow each other on Twitter. And I turned up at the school, obviously made an appointment. And she gave me 2 kids, 2 13-year-old kids, boy and a girl. And she went, they'll take you round. Go anywhere you want. Yeah. Go in any classroom you're going in. They're going to take
Nothing's hidden.
Nothing's hidden.
Yeah.
They'll take you. So it took me round and it's really quiet. And I'm thinking, I knew I'm going to be impressed. We're walking out of this corridor. I could hear like shouting and screaming. I thought, oh, here we go. It's not as good as I thought it was going to be. And I went into this classroom. I heard a noise. I stood at the back. And not one child turned around to see who walked in the room.
Really?
The teacher just ignored me. And the teacher is shouting questions at the kids. What's this over there? And all the kids are going, Philippines! And what's this? And the kids are going, Jupiter! And I've never been in a class with so much energy where kids are excited to learn and they're all, not 1 or 2 shouting the answers.
Yeah.
Everyone's screaming the answers.
Fantastic.
And the energy, and I walked out going, oh, I bet that's a one-off. And the whole school was fantastic. And then I went to, I stayed for lunch and I got told to sit with these kids' table. So I'm walking into, these 2 kids are still showing me around and I'm walking to the lunch hall. As I'm getting there, I can hear shouting again. The guy was going, lunchtime's always crazy in schools. She hasn't got a grip of this school canteen yet. And I walk in and all the kids are stood up and they're all shouting a poem about Julius Caesar. So they've all stopped eating, they've all stood up and they're all going, I can achieve, I can conquer. And I can't remember the exact poem. And it's like hairs on my head stand up, go, I can't believe this is a school. And then kids sit down and start eating again. And then the table have got discussion points. There's change every day. So we're all eating. And the prefect of the table then goes round as we're all eating. What do you think of this? Say, give me 2 points on this. And they've got to come up with something.
So they have to talk whilst they're eating to have a conversation.
Socialise while you're eating and while you're thinking. Yeah. I came out of that school going, do you know what? If all our schools in the country were like, there's only one cafe in Burble, Single, but if all our schools in the country were like that, we would be the top dog in the world. And these are nearly all ethnic minority kids, poor kids, all been sent there by the council. But she turns average kids into superstars.
Yeah. And Bridget Phillipson is ignoring her and treating it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Every morning, the kids all have to say, God save our...
Lord's Prayer?
No, the God save our gracious King. What's that called?
God save the... That's called the National Anthem.
National Anthem. All the kids have to say that every morning. Yeah? There's Union Jacks in the school.
Yeah.
She's instilling in them, you live here, you belong here,
Yeah.
You need to achieve here, and we don't want any excuses for you.
And I bet none of them can identify as llamas either.
Or they've had problems. They've had, they
There was a lot of tranny problems.
not tranny problems, but one of their students tried to sue him for Islamophobia.
Oh, right.
And he got to court, and obviously it was in their favour. But they've had some problems and parents' problems and stuff, but they just stick to the guns. But if you don't like this school, take your children somewhere else.
Yeah.
Where the kids in this school do amazing. Their results for a school like that are the same as Eton, which is, 30, 40, 50, 100 grand a year.
Yeah.
Their school delivers Eton education
Wow.
for zero for any of those parents. It's amazing.
Fantastic. I know it's possible. From my own kids, I know it's possible. Apparently Wes Streeting's allies have infiltrated number 10.
He's running for
He's running, so he's kind of seeing Starmer wounded and angling to get in there, basically. They're also talking about giving the vote to 16 and 17-year-olds.
Talked about this for about a decade. They did it in Scotland first.
But apparently a third of 16 and 17-year-olds now would back reform.
Yeah.
But knowing Labour being so stupid, they might do that and end up getting more votes against them than for them.
We talked about that before. Young people are always want to reject the status quo.
Yeah.
And always want to be the rebel, always want the revolution. For the last couple of decades, the status quo has been this far left liberal idiocy. So, of course, more and more young people will reject it.
Yvette Cooper is apparently looking at setting up a Doge unit in the...
That will just be window dressing, because, again, they want the votes of people who want efficient government. They know they cannot deliver efficient government without upsetting the workers, the public sector workers, the unions. There's no way any of our parties at the moment would initiate a Doge, but Labour least of all.
Yeah. I mean, when I heard that, I just laughed. I just thought that is going to be pathetic.
They just want some kudos for doing
It's pathetic, isn't it? And don't you think, I mean, I was reflecting on this, don't they look so slow and awkward and stupid compared to what's happening in America? When you look at our government now.
Every government in the world does.
Yeah.
Every government in the last 30, 40 years has looked slow and stupid compared to what they've done in 4 weeks.
I mean, you're looking over there, you're thinking, oh my God, this is how it should be done. This is how it really should happen.
And the fraud they're uncovering and the waste they're uncovering.
Yeah.
You see Elon the other day talking about Fort Knox.
Yes, he's worrying about how much, he's checking whether they've not done a stock take.
They've not done a stock take in 20, 30, 40 years. The last person who tried to go in was stopped and said, you can't come in here. Why? It's a military base. Well, I've got clearance for all military bases. Not this one. And neither is that going, is the goal there? Or has it been sold? Has it been fraudulently removed? Has it been robbed? Who knows? Is it there or not? But they're the sort of things we need. People go into Fort Knox and make sure the gold's there.
Well, I was going to talk about Trump later, but let's talk about him now and what he's up to, basically. So he said that all hell will break out if Hamas doesn't release the hostages. And I think Hamas then did release hostages. Is that right? Was that happened?
I don't know. It was Saturday just gone. He said 12 noon Saturday just gone. But the next day or 2 days later, they assassinated another Hamas leader or something.
Yeah. He's now looking at tariffs on Britain of something like 24 billion because of VAT.
I don't understand this.
Well, I don't understand the technical. I kind of understand some of it, but apparently where VAT is added at the point of sale, isn't it? So if you're purchasing something. But apparently what we've been doing is we've been putting VAT on exports, basically, to boost the size of the exports. So he's saying that isn't fair. America should be able to buy stuff without VAT on, basically. So I think VAT is happening on exports, but not on imports. So there's an imbalance of VAT. Maybe some of our readers, our listeners, may be able to.
So the British government are taxing the American shopper.
Correct.
Yeah.
With VAT, basically.
Right. That makes. I can understand. Yeah. It was like, well, don't matter where that product comes from.
Yeah.
It's all VAT added onto it.
Yeah.
Well, now, right. Thanks.
So he's saying he's going to put a tariff on them to get that money back.
Because you're taking advantage of my people.
Yeah. But VAT has always been unfair, and it's no longer working anything like it. I mean, it's incredibly high, 20%. So that's quite interesting. I think what was really interesting, the Doge thing. It's a lot of the liberal media and the liberals in America are complaining about the way Elon Musk is going into these organizations and unimpeded and doing this thing and saying it can't be right. But apparently it is totally legal, everything he's doing, and he's using powers that Obama put in place.
Of course.
To progress the progressive agenda. Yeah. So Obama put legislation in place to allow things like this to happen, so that people could go in and sort of accelerate the trammy stuff and things like that. And what Musk and Trump, which is really clever, have done is they've seized these powers and said, right, we're going to use these, but we're going to use these to do the Doge thing. So the Senate and the House of Representatives can't do anything about it because it's all perfectly legal.
Well, I've been warning people about this for decades. When people say to me, Nick, we need a law that stops the transgender stuff. Nick, we need a law for this, a law for that. And my answer always is, be careful what new laws you want.
Yeah.
Because they will be used against you at some point. Yeah. Because the next group comes along and you've given them freedom now to tap your phone or do this or make sure who's in the toilet. They'll use it against you.
Yeah.
We don't need new laws. We need less laws. But what we need is social cohesion to police and enforce social norms. Mm-hmm. That's what we need. I'm not going out over that. But I'm glad they're using Obama laws to do it, because that's their own fault.
The Ukraine thing is getting interesting now. So Trump has already said America's no longer going to bear the lion's share of aid to Ukraine, which is totally right. I mean, why the hell we're involved in Ukraine, I've got no idea. He's also told Europe that they will not be part of the Ukraine peace talks. So it's kicked off big style because he's now talking directly to Putin and completely ignoring Europe, completely ignoring what's he called, Zelensky, whatever his name is. And the Europeans are outraged, but they can't do anything about this. I think what is irritating to me is Keir Starmer's response to this is talking about now putting British troops into the Ukraine.
Yeah, not his son, by the way. He won't be putting his sons in a harm's way in the Ukraine. He'll be sending our sons to Ukraine.
Yeah.
It won't be his son.
Yeah.
His son will get a job somewhere else. There's only two ways wars result in. One result is someone wins, someone loses. That's easy to decide. The other option is negotiated peace. They're the only two outcomes from war. Now, we haven't got a winner or a loser in the Ukraine conflict because they're at a stalemate. They've been at a stalemate for years now. The only way out of this is negotiated peace. And it's going to be uncomfortable. I don't want to see Putin keep parts of Ukraine. It sends the wrong signal across the world. But you know what? I'm a realist. he will keep some of that land. He won't keep all of it because that'll be a trade-off for America. We'll keep the Donbass, we'll keep one of the two areas where the majority Russian speakers. We'll even do referendums in those areas. Those people can, a UN or the Americans can run the referendums. If they vote to stay Russia or stay Ukraine, we'll go with that. And we know those areas will vote to stay with Russia. But it's a negotiated peace because at the moment, it's a waste of money at time. And you know what? It's a waste of hundreds of thousands of young men's lives. It's just a meat grinder. And it's going nowhere. It's a stalemate. So it needs to end. But European weak leaders, it's easy for them to send other people's sons to die. It's easy for them to say, look, we have an enemy on our doorstep called Russia. Russia has been our enemy as the UK 250 years. That's one of our oldest enemies. We've been fighting them forever, not just when they turned communist, but before that. It's handy having an enemy close by, because then you tell your people, I'm here to protect you from the Russians. That's why we've got these new legislation. That's why we're taxing you more. That's why we're sending your sons to war. And that's why we're spying on you more in case there's Russian spies out there. It's handy for all these corrupt governments and dictators to have an enemy. And if we'd have handled Russia better at the beginning of the 90s, Russia would not be a problem. What we did was we beat Russia with a Cold War. Russia was bankrupt, and we decided we're going to carry on punishing you. What we should have said to Russia was what we did with Germany and Japan. We're going to help you rebuild, and we're going to help you rebuild as a Western modern nation, as our equal, as our partner, and there's no more need for war between us. But we did. We treated them poorly, and NATO and European Union kept creeping closer and closer to their borders, as if they're our enemy and we're going to attack. And people might say, we're never going to attack Russia. But you know what? Russians didn't expect Napoleon to attack. Didn't expect Nazi Hitler to attack. They all attacked. So Russia, in their mind, always know the West always attacks them. We should have treated them better, brought them on board to be a partner, but we didn't. And this is where we are now.
It's just observing Keir Starmer's clunky approach to this, though. The best thing he could come up with is suggesting putting British troops into the Ukraine.
We're going to send our troops to Ukraine. These are the same troops who can't secure our fucking borders.
Yes.
I don't think Ukraine has won them. General Smith, you've let 19,000 Russian soldiers in this week. Yeah, but that's good. I used to run the British border. That's not bad, 19,000 in a day.
But it's true, isn't it? We can't protect our own country, our own citizens, and we're offering to send troops. And this is how out of touch the Labour Party, Keir Starmer,
just virtue signaling. They want the headline.
Yeah.
He wants to look like the big tough man. I don't know why all.
There's a picture of him. There's a picture of him in an army uniform, isn't there, standing with some guys by tanks.
Yeah.
Stop thinking about bloody Ukraine and other countries and all I'm ever seeing this guy, Starmer, is in Europe.
International.
Or internationally or somewhere else. Get back into the UK and fix the fucking UK, Starmer. Stop poncing around in Europe and trying to virtue signal. Come back and look after British citizens and look after the people in our country instead of all this stupidity. It's just infuriating.
Haven't we sent British young men to enough wars this last 30, 40 years that meant nothing, that made the world more unsafe, that ruined our reputation? Haven't we sent enough of our men for this? I'm all for fighting. I'm all for the army. But we need to send it in when it's a threat. Russia's not a threat to us. Russia can't even beat Ukraine.
Yeah.
Ukraine, on the grand scheme of things, with an army, it's a nothing.
Yeah.
Russia's a nothing. Yeah. They're a hindrance. They're not a threat.
All this does for me is highlight the lack, the total lack of understanding of what the British people are worried about and concerned about, and the dislocation between the government and the people. And we go back to the Civil War thing. The dislocation is so massive now that this imbecile thinks talking about putting troops in Ukraine will chime with the British public.
Do you know how we damage Russia? The most simplest way of us to damage Russia is we become energy relying
Correct.
on ourselves.
Yeah. Be self-sufficient. Yeah.
Because Russia is funding this war
Yeah.
on their gas, their oil, their diesel. That's why they're funding this war. And Europe's buying it still.
Yeah.
And we're funding, and we're going to send soldiers to fight Russian soldiers who are being paid by us paying our gas bills.
Yeah.
End it.
Yeah.
We could bring Russia down just by stop buying their energy.
Correct. A couple of other things in America. Apparently journalists are being...
I love that. I know what you're going to say now. I love this one.
Journalists are being barred from the Oval Office for not saying Gulf of America. So... But what was also hilarious was a tweet. Somebody had done it, and it was like Sir David Boycott, obviously. It's a spoof on Jeffrey Boycott and the other guy, the Yorkshire guy. And there's a picture of England on the East Coast, Gulf of Yorkshire. You know, what is it, the North Sea?
Yeah. How would you react if at our Prime Minister's press conference, somebody in the press was referring to the Falkland Islands as the Malvinas?
Yeah. No, it's a good point.
They'd be like, no. Yeah. They're called the Falkland.
Yeah, get out.
Get out. And we're not having that. That's sedition.
Yeah.
That's propaganda.
Yeah.
And if America wants to call the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America, well, that's entirely up to them.
Yeah.
But then I want my journalists and my people, to a certain extent, calling it wise.
Correct.
And if you don't call it that, then I'm not going to speak to you.
Fantastic. I mean, you're seeing everything we need in this country over there, aren't you, basically?
Yeah.
I mean, but talking about Starmer, what about the opposition, or as I call them, the Chocolate Fire Guard? So Kemi Badenoch has now been the leader of the Tory party. I was shocked when I heard this. She's been the leader of the Tories now for 100 days.
No.
And what has she done?
Memorable days, then. Every one of them are memorable.
Because they say you got to, it's like when we buy a business, you got to sort things out in the first 100 days. Get in there and do it, Like you see what Musk and Trump are doing in their first 100 days. What's Kemi Badenoch done in their first 100 days? In opposition.
Nothing.
And it's not like she hasn't got stuff to go at, has she, Nick? Do you know what I mean?
She hasn't got a clue. Not because she's stupid, because she's far from stupid. I've chatted to her once. She's far from stupid. She's trying to keep her party together. She's trying to keep her position. Because the only way you become Prime Minister is by being the leader of one of the main parties. She's a leader of one of the main parties. She's hoping she'll be next Prime Minister. And you don't become Prime Minister by being ousted by your own MPs. So she daren't go too hard and too right, because most of her MPs are basically Lib Dems.
Yeah.
There's already a candidate going to the right, which is generic. So there's no point in her going right unless she goes past him. So there's no point in going a little bit right. You're going to lose people, but not as right as him. So she's just steady as she goes. And I think her plan is winds of change. Reform are looking good at the moment, but she's thinking, or she's hoping they won't last. They've just turned up at the right time. With us in the doldrums and Labour failing, they're looking good, but there's no substance, and they're going to collapse at some point next year or two. That's quite possible. She's looking at Labour and she's going, they're killing themselves. No point me helping them, because I don't want any of the tan varnish on me. I'm just going to leave them alone. I need to sort my party out. Now, while she's doing that, I'm not saying this is the right strategy or the wrong strategy. I'm just saying it's a strategy that I think she's doing. While she's doing that, she's losing the whole country. I think from day one, I always knew that the next leader of the Tory party was going to be an interim leader, was going to be a caretaker until the Tories sort themselves out. There's several years before they sort themselves out. And I think she is just doing the best she can. A thankless task. And there's a very good chance she won't last a year. She could be out any moment, at any time. I'm hearing rumblings all the time that Genovic has never stopped his campaign to be leader, even though he lost.
Yeah, and he's actually saying things that, I mean, pathetic he's saying him after the event, but he's saying things that make sense.
He is. So we will see where he goes. And if the Tories do really bad in May, at the May elections, even lots of elections have been cancelled anyway, but if they do really bad and Reform do really well, she could be out because the MPs will all panic. We're at a stage where I don't think we've ever been in this situation before, where we have no idea how badly the parties are doing. We've got 3 parties vying now. Reform now are on 27%, Labour on 25%, Tories on 23%. They're all roughly 25%, and every week they're swapping and changing. This is uncharted times.
But for reform to win, the Tories need to die, don't they? For them to win outright, yes. Yeah.
But at an election, it's plainly obvious Reform and Tories would come, not a deal, but they'd come to some sort of agreement. As in, you stand in these seats, we'll stand in these seats. Whoever gets the most seats will form the government with the help of the other. It won't be an official agreement because Reform got burnt last time. But it would make sense for the 2 right-wing parties to do.
I think Farage wants to destroy the Tories. I think he wants to end them, because I think the way for Reform to win is for the Tories not to exist. So I think he wants to end them, but we'll see.
I'm sure he does.
Yeah.
But it's hard to end the Tories next 2-3 years.
Yeah.
I don't think that's in his gift. The only people who can end the Tories are the Tories.
Yeah.
And they're doing all right.
And they're doing okay.
They're doing okay at the moment, ended themselves.
Well, I was right the other week when we were talking. Priti Patel did defend the UK's immigration record.
Didn't she?
Yeah.
Shocking.
Yeah. So.
And it explains when she was at the Home Office in charge of all this.
Yeah.
Did nothing. She complained that she wasn't allowed to. Same as Sola Bravo, couldn't do anything, complained. All these people get into these jobs, deliver nothing, then complain about how nothing can be done. We know it's hard to do these changes, but is it hard for Elon Musk and Trump? Is it not hard for them?
Yeah.
They seem to be able to do
something. They are. And that's the point, isn't it? Some sad news on the opposition. Tommy Robinson, who we know is in solitary confinement in, is it Belmarsh? I'm not sure where he is. Apparently he's not very well.
Yeah.
I don't know if you heard that.
I've heard he's lost weight, he's affected his mental health. That's why they put people in solitary confinement. It's a punishment. Because we're social creatures. And the biggest, toughest men in prisons, when you've done something wrong, what do they do? Solitary confinement.
Yeah.
We've got films about it. And we think to ourselves, can't be that bad. It's because you've never been through it.
Yeah.
But once you get, after a couple of days, a couple of weeks, a couple of months, talking to no one, seeing no one, it kills you.
That is really sad. I mean, he's a political prisoner. They stuck him in solitary confinement while Axel Rudy Cabana's walking around, apparently. Or I don't know if he is now, but he was. And now he's suffering. Now he's ill. It's a tragedy. Reform have started to actually say some more radical things now. They've now apparently said they will scrap net zero, which I don't know if you heard that.
They have, and also go after the people who are making money on it.
Really?
So people like Dale Vince, they're saying we're going to implement
he's a repulsive character.
He is. They said something like, we're going to have a windfall tax on anyone who's made money out of tax-funded renewables. So they're saying we're going to put a special tax on them.
And there was one other thing I had to mention because it just irritated me. It was in the Telegraph. We was talking about the AfD in Germany and what's happening. And they can't help themselves, can they, the media? Even the Telegraph, which is relatively okay some of the time. It said the spectre of far-right nationalism looms in Germany and referenced, of course, the Nazis.
Yeah.
But, this isn't the Nazis, is it? This is about the people are pissed off with what's happening.
Another terrorist attack.
Yeah.
It's at this time he drove his Mini into trade unionists.
Yeah.
And injured 13, 14 of them. Luckily, I don't think anyone died, thank God. But it's a weekly occurrence. And then we had the stabbing in Austria. Sat there grinning as he killed a 14-year-old boy and stabbed some other people.
Yeah.
And we're still not allowed to be angry.
Yeah.
We're still not allowed to protect ourselves or take revenge. We're still not allowed to do anything. And they're killing us.
Yeah. And they wheel out this trope, don't they? Nazis, right wing, it's a repeat of Germany. It's completely unrelated to that, isn't it?
Yeah, of course it is.
It's a completely different situation here. This is where, a country is being destroyed by immigration, Germany, and we're seeing it happening in the UK as well. And the people have had enough.
had enough weak leaders watching their country slowly decline over decades.
And finish on something that I know will be worrying you, Nick, that again, Trump, going back to Trump just as a final point, Trump has said he will declassify the Jeffrey Epstein client list. So you know, you might be nervous. Cause...
I'm nervous at all. That's one of the problems we have, and that's why we have these problems. Too much secrecy. We either trust the public to be sensible individuals who know what's best for them, their family, and their nation, or we don't. Now, there's people out there that, you know, will make the wrong decisions and will make the wrong conclusions. But on the whole, we're sensible people in the West. And the more secrets we have, the more likely we have governments who then want to work in secret. I don't want governments working in secret. If we make their job harder by them not having secrets, well, so be it. Work harder. But if we allow governments to do things we don't know and hold information back from us, I can guarantee they're holding back the stuff we need to know. We might not need to know the Jeremy Epstein list. We might not need to know that. But we need to break this model of them deciding what we know and what we don't know. I'll decide what I need to know. Give it me all, and then I'll decide what I should have read and what I shouldn't have read.
Tree is like grown up.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, there's no secrets on the Mayor and I, Nick. So
we have no secrets.
So on that note, we'll end episode 81. Bye, I see.
Cheers.